I hope all of you know that I have shared a link in WhatsApp group that is to this particular window, code share window link I have already shared. I'll be using this window to share Python codes with all of you throughout the session because many of you may not be able to type very fast or may need more time to organize things on the coding platform because you may be the first time coders. So just to ease the process for you, I'll be sharing all the codes side by side on this code share window, and you will be able to actively access it like live sharing will be doing. I'll first explain every code that I'll be writing, then I'll share it here so that you can also execute it on the other side. If you are good enough with the typing speed, maybe you can type yourself. Otherwise, you can take help from this code share window where all the codes will be available side by side. This is just to assist you. So I have written some notes right in the beginning of this that please do not edit or write anything on this window because otherwise it will create disturbance to all the participants with some random sentences or lines on the screen. So I'll be writing here and you all are allowed to copy you can copy your codes and you can use it somewhere else, but please do not edit or delete anything from here so that it doesn't bother other participants. Now we will be talking about the things that we are going to learn today. In today's session, our focus is Python basics. So we'll be learning about how we declare variables in Python, what are various data types and operators, etc. Since I consider that we have diverse range of audience connected in this course, and many of you might have learned a little bit of coding earlier also, and many of you might be doing it for the first time. So in this session, I'll be taking like some baby steps only for coding, so that even if you are a complete beginner, you can understand how Python coding actually works. I'll be taking some very simple examples and I'll try to help you understand how this programming language can solve your different requirements in healthcare applications. So it is important to mention that for those who are not from coding backgrounds, maybe things may appear like how these things are going to help you further. But for the first 2-3 days only, you will feel like there are only some small blocks of code that you are running around. But when I'll compile those different learning materials together to create some user interfaces at maybe after 3-4 sessions after learning all the basics, then it will bring more clarity to you that how actually all this backend details or how this development is going to help you on the end user side. So just have patience, have your patience for the learning process, the basics that we are going to discuss, and definitely some baby steps only will be taking. I'll not create very complex codes for you. And we will be definitely interacting throughout the session. I have the chat window open side by side with me. So all of you can post your messages side by side wherever you feel stuck. Whenever you need me to repeat anything again, I'm here to help you throughout the session for this hands-on practice. Now, coming to the platform that we'll be using for coding, as we discussed yesterday, we'll be using Google Colab for this. If anyone missed the steps that I told you in yesterday's session, I can repeat them again over here, that how you access the coding sheet on Google Colab. So very first thing you have to do is search for Google Colab like this on your browser, on any of your browsers. Just search for Google Colab. This is the same thing that we have done in yesterday's session, but if anyone missed or you have not remembered things, I can repeat here again for your ease. Now you can just click on this very first option that is coming from Google Colab itself. Click here and wait for a new window to appear on your screen. On this window now you will be able to sign in For instance, in my case, it is already signed in, and I can have an option to cancel this front window directly. So I'll click here in the background, and you will see at this point, a sign-in may be required in your case. If not, if your account is already available here, then it's fine. Otherwise, you just need to sign in with your Gmail account, as I discussed yesterday also. After signing in on this particular section, you have to click on File and then New Notebook in Drive. After sign in, just go to File option and then click on New Notebook in Drive so that it can directly open a coding sheet in your Drive and it will be saved there only. So as soon as you click on this, you will be able to find a new sheet like this that is just loading now. And we can close the previous. This one we can close after opening a sheet. This one will not be required anymore. Just this one we need. Let me know if you all are able to reach at this point. Let me know if we all are on the same page now. Okay, great. Thanks for the updates in chat box. So as I told you yesterday that your very first step will be to rename your sheet so that later on you can find it. So maybe I'll call it day 4 AI for healthcare course. You can rename it as per your choice. You can give any name based on the project or the title of this today's session that you will find in your brochure also. We have mentioned every title clearly over there. So this is the first session of Python Basics we are running here. So accordingly also you can rename your file. Now, for the extreme beginners, we have already discussed that there are text and code cells that will be using time and again. Currently, this one is a code cell. Code cell is for writing your Python codes, and text cells are for writing your textual informations, any kind of headings, any textual information, summaries, etc. For your reference material, anything you have to add that you can put in the text cell. So we will start first with a very basic code that generally in any programming language a beginner will learn. That is the Hello World or Hello Python code. That is the best thing for the beginner to start with. So what we'll do is I'll first add a text cell here. Observe this. I'm first inserting a text cell and then I'll be just taking it upward and I'm putting my first marker here. Basics of Python variables we are learning first of all. So I'm putting a indication for you that what we are going to learn in the first step here. Just for your reference, accordingly, you can also prepare your notes so that your sheet stays organized. And in future also, if you have to learn from it again, you can find that easily. Now, writing a very first code here. For instance, I just need to print Hello Python. Maybe I just want to interact on my coding cell and I just want to write Hello Python. So generally in normal English language, we would write it like this. But in order to make it a executable thing in Python programming, you have to enclose this text in columns with these inverted commas on both sides. You can use single inverted commas also and double inverted commas. I'll discuss their difference also further. But as a beginner at initial stage, you can use single or double inverted commas, any of these, to put your text over here. I'll be using various keywords throughout the session that you may need to understand to enter into data science field or Python programming side by side. So when we insert a text like this, it appears a string The technical word for this is a string in any programming language, same as in Python. String means any alphabetical sequence. And string is always written within inverted commas because this is a random alphabetical sequence. Otherwise, it will not be understood by the programming interface. So we write it within inverted commas. And in order to run this code now, I'll just click on this play button, and it will take just a few seconds to establish connection with Google servers first. The first line of code will always take longer time to execute because currently we are working on Google servers with this Google Colab platform, and it takes time to establish connection first of all. Once your connection is established, you will see output something like this. Whatever you have written in your syntax, that is printed as an output. And if you get this green tick in front of your cell, that means your cell is running fine and there is no error. Let me know if you are able to execute the very first code. Okay, great. So now let us take it one step further. At this point, I have written just a very basic syntax only. Now, sometime we may need to write this syntax within a variable. And variable here means we are assigning a name to certain declaration. Like if you have some value from patient health readings, like maybe temperature value you have measured as maybe 100 degrees C. So for that value to store somewhere, you may need a variable. We call that variable, which is going to store or hold certain value. And in order to declare a variable in Python, the process is very simple. What you can do is you can simply write that variable name, like maybe temperature variable, I can write here. And inside this, I can store any value like maybe 98. This is a simple variable declaration. And observe that if I run this, if I'm running this code, I'll get no output by the end of this cell, but I can see a green tick. It means this value 98 is now stored in temperature variable. So if I need to access this value anytime in future now, I can use this temp variable, and whenever I'll call it, it will print this 98, which is stored inside this variable. So this is how a very simple variable declaration we can do in Python programming. And for the very beginners, you will see that there is nothing more to remember. I told you yesterday also, like Python is like a simple English language. So you can easily create syntaxes in this. You just have to write with the variable name equal to some value, and that will be stored automatically. Now, same goes with any string. Like the value I have placed here right now, we call it technically a int or integer. I'm also telling you keywords side by side. So a integer value, or in technical terms in Python, we call it a int. This is the integer value. A whole number with certain value becomes an integer. You can even have floating point numbers with certain decimal value, or many other versions of data are there that we will be discussing further. Now I'll be moving to the next step here. For instance, I want to store a certain message. So I'll create a variable named message, and I'll write here, welcome to Python programming class. Maybe this is the message we want to store. Now observe the difference. When I had to put an integer, there was no need to have an inverted comma around it. I could save it directly and I could display it in next step. But when we are dealing with a string value, as I told you earlier here, we need to use inverted commas around it. Then only the value will be stored in the variable. So if I run this, it will be stored with the green tick, and we can now print this message anytime. These are just some single word codes only. That is why I'm not sharing them on the code share side by side, because these are the simple ones that you can type easily. But for any lengthy codes further, I'll be putting that on the code share also. So that will be easier for all of you. Let me know if we are good up to this. Just taking some very simple steps only, considering that many of you might be doing coding for the first time. If you have to move to the next line, only single click is enough. Double click is not required in this. Single click is enough just to move to next line. And if you have to insert a new code cell, then you have to use plus code from here. Then only a new code cell will be inserted. Let me know if this is clear, or if you need any other information, then also let me know. In order to run your code, you need to play this button. Means you just have to hit this play button in front of your code cell. Then only it will run. I hope this is clear. Okay, now let us see one important thing here. Till now, I have used two different variables, this temperature variable and message variable. Now, let me show you one important thing here. If I call this temperature variable again, it is important to notice that once a variable is declared in your sheet, we can use it anywhere throughout the sheet now. It will stay active as long as this sheet is active on your Google Colab, means as long as the sheet is open. You have not closed this. All these variables will be active till then. So if I write this temperature variable here, it will again call the value. And if below this, I put this message variable, observe what I'm doing. I'll show you the difference. If you can see the message variable, I can use simply so it can print the exact message. But if I use both of them together, so generally we would expect that it should print both values one by one. Like first it should print 98 and then it should print the message that we have stored inside. But if I click on this, observe, only this value will be printed, this value will not be printed. This is important to understand for every person who is new to this Python platform. It always prints the latest variable by default. Even if you replace them, like if you put message on the top and temperature below it, then only temperature will be printed, message will not be printed. It considers only latest variable for print, and others it will keep in the memory only. But in any case, if you need to print both of them altogether, there are multiple ways to do that. One option we can have is we can put a comma between both of these variables like this, and then I can run. So it will print both of them like this with brackets and with comma in between. It can print both of them. But maybe you may not require them together everywhere. If you need to print them in separate lines, in that case, for the previous one, I can use a print command. We call it a print function. This, you can see, comes with round brackets. We will discuss functions in detail in coming sessions also. But here, one of the most essential functions that will be used in every class that I'm introducing only. print function. In any programming language, this is very important. Print function is almost available in every programming language because it helps you to print values of the variables as well as many other details that we will be learning further. So in this case, now if I try to run this again, you can observe that first one message is also printed, and then temperature is also automatically printed. It is important to observe that the latest variable is printed by default, and this variable is printed with the help of print command. In the meantime, I have shown you other option also, that is to separate both of them with comma, and you can see the output in this form in that case. But if you need them separately, then you can use print command. It is even possible to use print command with both of the variables. That is also fine, no restriction on that. So we can use it in this format and still it will be printed here. And this brings you to an important thing here, that there are multiple ways to do same thing in programming languages. It is not like what limited thing we are going to learn in this session, that is the only thing you can do. No, when you explore it further, there are hundreds of different ways to do the same thing. Only that glimpse I'm giving you here, that in order to just print something, we have different ways that we can use easily. Let me know if we are clear up to this. If you have learned variable declaration and how to print them, just let me know in the chat box quickly. If you have any queries, you can post in the chat box, or maybe you can turn on your mic as well. After learning the basic declaration process, I'm inserting here a few rules for variable declaration that you may need to keep in mind as a beginner when you will be working on different set of variables. What considerations you should keep in your mind that I'm putting here. For instance, while declaring your variables, we generally expect people to add alphabetical sequences as variable names. These are the most commonly used versions, alphabetical sequences. However, sometimes people do a difference. Yes, Python is case sensitive programming language that you need to keep in mind. Everything is case sensitive in this. And the difference between these commas, I'll be discussing further in detail because there are three different types of commas. I told in the beginning also that currently you just use these inverted commas. I'll be discussing the difference between them. Just within 2-3 important sections, I'll be coming to difference between different commas. So don't worry about that. But yes, make sure all of you that Python is a case sensitive language, and that is one of the most common thing as an error for beginners you will find. So when you have declared a variable with maybe small case, you have to use it with the same small case everywhere. That you have to always keep in mind. Okay, so learning some rules for variable declaration, that is essential first. So we expect that we enter alphabetical sequences as variable names. And what are the common mistakes that people do in this sometime? Sometimes they start their variable names with a number. If you try to do anything like this, you will get an error because this kind of number in the start of your variable name is not accepted by the Python platform. And with this, we will also learn one more thing, that is how to identify errors in Python. Whenever I teach Python programming to any beginners, the very first thing I prefer them to get friendly with is error diagnosis, because beginners are always fearful with the error diagnosis. And it is important to learn how you identify them and how you treat them. So in Python, there are generally 3-4 different ways to identify presence of an error. Listen to this, everyone, very carefully, because error diagnosis is the most important thing to learn whenever you are learning coding. then only you will be confident with the programming process. So I told you that in Python, there are 3-4 different ways to identify errors. The very first technique is you will always see a red underline wherever there is a chance of presence of error. You can observe that red line here also. Before this, I have declared several different things, but there were no error line in any of them. But this time I can see a error line. This is the very first indication of error in my code. Let us see other indications. Now, if I run this code, I can see many further erroneous things on my screen. Observe from here, how do we identify or consider certain presence of error? Second way to identify presence of error is line number. Currently, because I have a very basic code that is confined to one line only, so it is showing that error is at line 1. But later on, when we'll be creating little bigger code, as you learn further, as you progress with it, we'll be creating bigger codes also. So at that time, these line numbers will help you understand in which line exactly you have your error. Similarly, one more identification you will find with the help of this notch. This kind of notch will be generally placed on the point where the chances of error are in your entire syntax. Because currently we have a very minor code here. So this arrow is placed very precisely on 1. Sometime you will observe side arrow also, sometime bottom arrow notches. These notches may appear from this direction, from bottom direction, from upper direction. That is just a way of Python platform to mark presence of error at certain point. And then the fourth way to identify your error is the description and name of the error by the bottom of error line. So here it is representing that this is a syntax error and you are using a invalid decimal literal. So it is considering that you are using a wrong syntax over here. And it is important to mention that because Python is an open source platform, if in future you get stuck with any of the complicated errors, you can always copy the last line of your error and put it anywhere on the browser, and you will get immediate solutions for everything, because there is a very huge community supporting Python and they provide answers to almost every query easily. So there will be plenty of links available that you can find on your browsers in that case, and they can guide you to solve any of your errors, because Python, that is the main reason why beginners find Python easy to learn. So this is a way to identify presence of error. And now further, this one rule I have told you, that we don't expect any number in the beginning, that will lead to an error. So I'll move forward and I'll show you one more thing. In case if you try to place a underscore, something like this, a number, then underscore, and then maybe any alphabetical sequence. In this case also, you will get an error. You cannot even connect a number with variable, alphabetical sequence, not with the underscore also. In both cases, it will be an invalid way to declare your variables. However, there is one more possibility. For instance, I can declare a variable with the underscore in the beginning and then value after it. And that can be easily used. You can observe a variable with this underscore var value I have declared, value 56 I have added to this, and it can be utilized as it is. So a direct underscore in the starting of variable name is acceptable, but with a number, it is not acceptable. That you always have to keep in mind while declaring your variables. Sometimes we try to create difference between different variables, like they are easy to remember or easy to access, but still you need to keep in mind that there are some rules to be followed in this case. And it is even possible to add underscores between two words. So in case if you are using 2-3 different alphabets or maybe words together to create a single variable name, you can connect them with a underscore between them. So maybe you can declare a name like this after the equal to sign. So this becomes first name, but you will not be able to write it with a space in between. Variable declaration should ensure that both your words that you are using for variable declaration, they are either connected through a underscore or they are connected as it is without any space between them. Even a dash between these is not generally permitted. So if I run this, you will again see that you cannot assign an expression like this because it will consider this as a minus sign. So a dash also is not expected. So you just have to use either an underscore or you connect both words together. Let me know if these basic rules are clear to everyone, just for basic variable declarations. You can put your comments in the chat box if everything is going fine. Okay, great. So now, as I told you in the beginning, that all your variables that are successfully declared, they will be stored in memory and we can access them anytime until and unless they are deleted. So sometimes it is even required to delete certain existing variable, and how we can do that. For example, if I want to delete this variable, let us first access it so that you can assure that it is present in your memory. You can see this is present right now. I'll just delete this variable, and that I can do by using del command. To delete a variable, I can use this command. So I'll run this. And after this, if I try to access this variable, I'll get an error that this variable name is not defined because I have deleted it. So it is even possible to delete some existing variables so that accordingly you can define them again, or maybe whenever the same variable name you need again, somewhere else, you can redefine it as per your choice. So this is just to remove certain variables from your memory. Now we come to one more important part here. Type checking of variables. When we are declaring some variables, in the beginning, I told you there are different versions possible, like string, integer, float, etc. These are common formats. Other than this, also several formats exist that we'll be discussing in coming sessions. But today we are discussing the basic ones, that is int, float, and string, etc. And that we can easily identify here. For instance, I create 3 different variables with first one value 100, then maybe second one with value certain decimal entry, and then third one with certain string values. So what declarations we are doing? This is int, this is float, and this is your string. These are the technical keywords that we'll be using time and again further in Python programming. So I'm introducing them here clearly. And with this, we can print or directly call any of them. You can observe the value will appear like this. Now, important thing here is If any of you have learned some other programming languages somewhere in your academic career, maybe C or C++, etc., there you may have learned that we first do type declaration for any variable. Like for declaring any variable with specific data type, we first write it. In C programming or C++, you will generally see int variable, something like this we declare. We say that this variable name or whatever we are going to store, this is going to contain an integer value, and after that only we can assign a value to this. But in Python, this two-stage declaration is not required. In this case, whenever you declare a variable, it will automatically consider its type. So for instance, if I try to check type of these variables, like type counter, I'll type here, it will automatically say that this is integer. Similarly, if I try to check miles, it will automatically say that it is a float. And then if I try to check name, it will say that it is a string. So in this way, the type of different variables we can easily observe in Python platform, and there is no need to declare them separately. I hope we are good up to this. str is representing string representation. This is in Python, this is written as str, string. And similarly, int represents integer. Float is written as it is in Python. These are just data types. String represent your alphabetical sequence. Whenever there is an alphabetical data, that is named as a string data. In previous sessions, we have talked about different types of data that can be gathered from your healthcare environment. So when you are getting some values like maybe discharge summaries or maybe OPD notes from the doctors, they will be generally available in the form of strings, because they will have some alphabetical sequences. So they may be in string form, or we call them text formats also. Text will be when there are larger summaries, and string generally we call when we have like small word sequences, we directly call them as string sequences. I hope that is clear. Okay, great. So now we come to the quotation issue. Okay, you have deleted code. Okay, I have pasted it again. Thank you for reporting on time. Okay, so we were talking about quotation in Python earlier, and some people were eager to know that when we can use those double quotation marks or single quotation marks. So let me just tell you quickly how we can utilize them, because time and again you may need to use them further also. So when we have generally a single word declaration, we prefer single quotation marks in that case. Then second is when you have sentence, this is a sentence I'm writing, means more than one word when you have, we generally prefer double quotation marks in that case. And then the third case we have is paragraph, where we generally prefer T quotation marks to occur together. For instance, I'll write this is a paragraph and it is going to contain multiple lines. Something like this I'm writing when. So this becomes a paragraph with multiple lines. So these are three general representation. Observe here that this thing and this one, the single and double quotation marks, they can be used alternatively as well. It is important to understand here. Python is forgiving about the use of single and double quotation marks, although the one I have shown you here are the standard, like how the experienced programmers follow it and how they guide to differentiate between single word and sentences. They generally recommend that you use single and double quotation marks like this. However, Python platform itself is forgiving about this type of declaration. So you can alternatively also use single and double quotation marks. That is good. There will be no error in that case. However, for a paragraph based declarations, maybe when you have hospital discharge summaries, doctor notes, nursing notes, etc., they may have multiple lines or a larger paragraphs also. So in that case, you may need to put them in triple quotation marks only, because observe here what I can do. If I run this, you can see a green tick mark, means it is working fine. And then I can call my paragraph over here and it will be printed something like this. Observe, these are line continuation characters. They come automatically here. They will just show that from here a new line is starting. So they come automatically, line continuation characters we call them. But yes, it can help you to store your entire paragraph. Now, if I use maybe double quotation marks like this, you can observe I can see error lines for this, because this is not permitted for a long sequence. We generally use 3 quotation marks together in this case. Let me know if this use of quotation marks is clear. And with this, you might have also observed in between several times that I'm using comments in Python that we can keep with hash symbol. Anything written after hash symbol is considered as a comment, and that is not a executable task, means that is just for the reference purpose. So I'm writing here some comments like this, maybe for declaration of single word for a sentence, and this is for paragraph, but I cannot use it at this position because then it comes within your inverted commas. I can put it here. So in this way, again, I can mark my details. I can update this in your code section here as well for your quick reference. Again, I'm mentioning that considering the time limit of available sessions, I'm just showing you few essential things only. As you explore further, there are unlimited other ways also to deal with your text in Python. So maybe as time comes in future, we'll be learning many new things also. And after that also, there are many things to explore, you will find. Now, I'll be moving further with different types of important declarations that we will be using repeatedly in your learning procedures. And for that, I'll write here taking user input. How we can take user input in Python, that we are going to learn now. For instance, sometimes you are just taking data from the patients directly and you have to update into your system. So in that case, user inputs may be required. It may be like some forms you are circulating to patients or attendants to get their inputs. So for that, some kind of input boxes are required. Currently, I'm just showing you how you create those input boxes. I'll not be creating a complete GUI because this is your first session with the programming language. But as you learn these small blocks, I'll be further using them after 3 days to create a GUI-like interface that will bring more clarity to you. So currently, just learn it as a basic concept to consider user input directly. And how we can do that? For this, we have a direct input function in Python. Whenever you are expecting some input from end users, you can use input function and observe this carefully. If I run this code, it will create a box automatically below and it will require an input from my side. Currently, because I'm using this only, but later on we'll be creating it for the public use also, then you will see that how other people can also input in this. So you can observe one thing here, this cell will keep on running as long as I have not updated any input inside. So your entire programming sheet will be stuck on this line if this circle is rotating like this. So until and unless I put some input into this, then only it will stop. For example, I'm putting here just a value and it will be stopped after that, and it will be updated like this. You can run it again, and then also again you can put some value and that will be printed like this. This is how user input can be taken in Python. But there is an interesting thing that you need to observe with this input function. If you run it, you can observe that this value is currently shown within inverted commas. Observe here, I have inserted 67 and it is showing that within inverted commas. Other than this, maybe if I type ABC, that is also shown within inverted commas. Can anyone tell me quickly, what does this inverted comma represent here? We have discussed this earlier. What indication you can get from here? In the chat box, you can, yes, definitely. Means by default, it is taking everything as string. So even if I'm inputting a number like this, it is still considering it as a string. We can verify that also. Like I'm writing here a num is equal to input, and then we will try to check type num. Type function we have already used to check data type of any variable. So let us see what it says. If I'm using a number, it still says that it is a string. This is very important to understand. So what we are learning here, that by default, input function takes string values only. That is our learning from by default version of input function. Now, this is not legit for all the cases, because when we are taking patient data, it is not necessary that we'll have string information all the time. There may be floats, there may be ints, and there may be different formats. So in order to change format of this input function, what we can do here is we can add function within function. I'll show you how we do that. For instance, I expect someone to enter maybe their age. Maybe a patient is filling up a form and I want them to enter their age. So I may need this either in the form of integer, or if you are specific with the month also, then maybe in the form of float also you would expect, like maybe 10 years, 5 months. So that will be 10.5. But majority of time people prefer to enter it in integer format. So you can use int format in this case. So how we will control it? I'll write here int first of all. This int function has ability to control anything inside it as an integer. And inside this, I'll pass my input function now. You can observe inside this, I'll write my input function. And then I'll try to check type of age. So if I run it now you can see this is integer now, because I have changed its format manually here. So in this way, maybe when you are creating some user registration form for your hospital desk or your clinic desk, or maybe you are just collecting some test summaries or maybe some report summaries from the patients in a form, so you can use this kind of controlled format in that case. Wherever a string is required, then you can use it directly. Wherever a specific version of data is required, you can control it from outside. And we can even make it more specific to the users. Like you can see, what I can do is inside this input function, I can write here, enter your age in years, or clearly we can write years, so that it can even guide people who are filling the values. Yes, sure, I can explain it. You can observe I'm writing here a value and this is showing. Let me take it from the previous step. First of all, I have used input function directly. And here I told you that you can observe that type by default comes as string always. Means it considers even number as a string. Means it is taking everything as an alphabetical sequence, not as a numerical sequence. If we have something as a string, Like if it is considering this 56 or 78 as a string, in that case, I cannot apply a mathematical operation on this string value, because for mathematical operation, we need number. So for instance, if you see, if I do num plus 1, you will observe it will say an error that we cannot do a summation between a string and an integer. So it means if I'm using my forms like this, or maybe hospital entry system I'm using like this, or report collection I'm doing like this, the values will be string and I cannot operate them mathematically later on. But generally you may need to operate age, etc. These are numbers. Maybe later on you have to calculate a BMI from age and weight or height information you get from the patients. So in order to calculate that, you may need numbers specifically. So you have to control that. Then only you will be able to apply formulas on that later on. So what we will do is we will change its data type from outside. And for this, what I'm doing is outside this input function, I'm applying one more function. You can see one more bracket I have added. These round brackets come with the function itself. And function we call these things. Whatever comes with round bracket, this is a function. Then function within function I'm putting here is just to ease the process of declaration. So after controlling it as an int data, after this, if I enter any value, that will be considered as an integer. Let me know if this is clear. If you are stuck with anything still, then also let me know. Okay, great. So after this, I'm making it more precise for the end users. Like maybe when you are getting data directly from regular patients visiting your hospitals, you just need to complete your data entries easily, and you have to guide them also very well. So you can create a form with precise information. Like if I give a number like this only, so what will appear to the users in this case? If I run this, user will see only this box. So they don't know what they have to enter inside. They may enter anything. They don't know what they have to enter inside. So in order to control it well, what I can do is I can give them instructions side by side. And for this, I can write any text within inverted commas in my input function inside, and that will be printed side by side when I run this part. You can see it is now guiding me well that you have to enter your age in years. So maybe we can add that number and it will be stored automatically. And now I can access this age anytime. Whenever I have stored this value, now I can access this age, and this contains that recently added number. So this may ease your data collection processes also whenever you are getting data, maybe from doctors, patients, or maybe from some reports, you are just filling your data quickly. So this is the easier process. And let me know if you are good up to this. So when we are getting these type of updates from any user, now it is possible to apply formulas on that, like using input function with operators. I'll write here. There are plenty of operators, just few of them I'll be discussing here, like normal addition, subtraction, division, everything we can do in Python also. So whenever you have data obtained from certain list of patients, maybe then you have to operate them mathematically. Maybe you have to derive new features from that, maybe some additional values you have to add, you have to drive something new. So all those things we can do mathematically also in Python. So currently we are doing just a basic version of that. later on I'll tell you that how you can do that with the help of libraries also. That will be more easier way to handle your CSV or Excel files. But currently we are doing it with direct numbers only. If you have direct number access, then also you can do that in Python. So let us see what I can do is, maybe I'm inserting number 1 and number 2, maybe two values I'm inserting directly, or you can use it with reference to some of your numerical values also from patient entries. Like instead of taking numbers, what I'll say is I'll use weight and height, maybe two details we are taking from the users, and then we are maybe calculating BMI. So you can put that formula directly: weight divided by height raised to the power, uh, so we can do it by double star raised to the power 2, and then I can see the BMI. So here any value, for example, we are inserting, and height, the units you can specify, that will be on your call. So units, definitely in your data type you have to specify, that is not required within it. That you just for your reference you may have to put, like maybe in kg or maybe in centimeters or meters, however you want to add those units. So accordingly you can put that. So whatever values you have for insertion, you can update that here. So for this, what I'm doing is, like maybe these values we have inserted, I can run and the BMI can be calculated with this. Or maybe if I have age in this format, so accordingly the multiplication will be done, and this height or weight, whatever information in centimeters or meters we are taking, the units we can have for our reference only. Here we need to add only the values directly, or it depends on how you are manipulating your data. So accordingly the multiplication factors, division factors, you can definitely add. Currently I'm just showing you the basic version that you can deploy now formulas directly. So this one I'm calculating is with your direct values. We are putting values here directly, and then only we are taking it. Now, your task further. Let me give you a small task so that you get confident with the language. So instead of putting values like this, let us take weight and height information from users directly by using input function. And then the formula we can apply on that. So what task you have to do, I'm writing, create a simple program to take user input for weight and height and then calculate BMI. Just give it a try. Otherwise, I'll help definitely. Just give it a try if you can do this. By learning whatever we have done earlier using input function, that only you have to deploy here. Share your code in the chat window when it works. I'll be waiting for a while. I can see some inputs in the chat box. We'll wait for others also to share. Give it a try, consider your ways, and update in the chat box when you are done with it. That's great. I can see one more input. So I hope others are also able to understand this. I can just execute any of these codes, almost similar they are. So maybe in this format, we can have it, and I can just run this one. So maybe weight and height we are inserting. So this is showing BMI like this. So just the formula we are updating. You can do it now with any of your calculations. You can deploy that, and now every time when you are running this code, if you are deploying it on any application where users can input, and automatically the scores are calculated behind and they will be retrieved on your end. So your manual efforts get reduced in that case because it is calculating everything whenever someone is inputting certain value. Yes, you can declare variable types accordingly in that case. You can use float variables in that case, definitely. So in the similar manner, like maybe we'll be considering maybe one more task here, just for the practice purpose so that you get confidence on how we are using it. Let us calculate growth rate of certain disease from yesterday's and today's cases reported. So two values you may need: today's cases, yesterday's cases, and from there you can calculate your values. The formula will be pretty simple. You just have today's cases minus yesterday's cases divided by yesterday's cases and multiplied by 100. That will be your growth rate formula. So you can deploy that here now. Maybe some cases are being reported repeatedly in hospital environment, and you just have to keep a track of how the growth is happening. This kind of scenarios could be helpful during your COVID-19, etc., when there was huge number of patients being entered into various hospitals. So from there, quickly the growth rate could be monitored by deploying these kind of systems. So you can give it a try. Two values only you need: today's cases, yesterday's cases, and from there the growth rate you have to deploy. The formula for growth rate will be pretty simple. If I can add here for your reference, you just have to use today's cases minus yesterday's cases divided by yesterday's cases and multiplied by 100. So this kind of formula you may have to use, and you'll be able to calculate it. So in the similar pattern, take the input functions, get these two values, and then apply formula, and then show the growth rate with print statement. Prefer to use print and specify that carefully. Yes, you can use that in float also, no problem. That is your choice how you want to take your variables. You can take, generally the cases will be reported in whole numbers. There will be no need of a float majority of time, because there will be count of patients that are reported. So that will be majority of time in int format. I'll wait for a few more responses. Check carefully how you have to use input functions, how you can control them in terms of int and float, and based on that you have to create your code. Anyone else with any outcome? I hope some of you may be trying. I can see two inputs, but you are not using input functions accurately in them. So please check your code again. The first one is also missing in terms of how you are controlling your variable input. And in the second case, you are just using the growth rate formula, but you are not inputting values for today's and yesterday's cases. So you have to just take care of that. I'll just wait for a while, then I'll solve it here if anyone is still stuck. Okay, so if you have a trouble in this, what I'll do is I'll help you with this. We have today's cases and other variable is yesterday's cases. For example, I'm using these variable names. You can have your own variable declaration. That is not problem. I'm just using some random variable names here. You can change them as per your choice. Then we have the formula for growth rate that I have already mentioned. For example, this formula I have already given. So you can use this kind of formula here, but we need to make sure that we are declaring it in the same pattern as we have described earlier. So these are the formula entries we may need. And after this, I'll use print statement for the output. Now, the very first thing that majority of you are missing right now, I'm telling you that you have to control the input itself. If I'll use input function like this, enter today's cases, if I use it like this, I'm not controlling whether it is integer or float, what it is. I'm not controlling that. So in that case, it will consider everything as a string that we discussed recently. If I'm using it like this, then everything will be considered as a string only. So we have to correct it by applying int function outside it, or maybe float if you want. But in this case, int is preferred. So I'll put my int function outside this. Once I'm getting input as int only, then definitely that will be applied easily into the formula. I need not to change any type in that, and I can print after that easily. So for print also, now I'll show you one more technique. We can even modify print function by adding both types of entries, string sequences and variable values. You can see this string will be printed as it is. When it is inside inverted commas within print statement, it is printed as it is. And this will take its value from the previous formula. The black one, this is the variable that will be taken from the formula. And the one, this is red, this will be printed as it is. So string within inverted comma, when it is inside print function, it goes as it is. So what I'll do is, if I run this, I'll add maybe today's cases, for example, and then yesterday's cases. So growth rate, it is showing 100%. So in this manner, you just have to understand at which point the variable type control is needed. Like if I do this other way that many of you are trying, like maybe if I try this one example, if I'll place it here, if I try to run it, for instance, you see 45 and 34 I'm adding. In that case, I'm doing conversion at this point. But here we are not guiding anyone that what type of format we are using. So if someone is initially using anything else also, it will be updated like this. It will be getting some error. So although it is fine to use your int conversions at later stage, but generally we recommend to use them at this stage. Reason for that is in your memory, it will be stored accurately in that case. So for instance, if I don't apply this growth rate, maybe I'm not applying this one. I'm just using this today cases directly. So I'm putting some values randomly. And you can see this 67 in that case is a string value. So although in this formula it is working fine, but later on if I have to use it with any other formula, there it will take it as a string value. So better to control it right when you are taking the input. So this will be the better way to do this, so that in your memory itself it is stored in the required version. Let me know if the difference is clear. I hope everyone is good up to this. So now I'm moving to the next thing, operators in Python. Although some operators, basic ones, we have already started using. I have shown you how you use raised to power, how you use division, that while working on other programs, we have done that. Plus, minus symbols, everything, that is a basic thing only. But there are many other operators also that you will need in Python while working on your different entries. So for using these operators, first I'll create a list of variables on which I'll be applying my operators further. For example, we are taking patient vitals and we are storing them into different variables. First of all, I'm just storing name of the patient. So maybe any random name I'll pass here. Then I'm adding heart rate of the patient from certain vitals. Then I'll be adding respiration rate, for instance. I'm just updating some random values. You can change these values as per your requirement later on. And then maybe 98.7, I'm adding as temperature. Then systolic blood pressure, I'm adding as maybe 120. Then diastolic, I'm adding as maybe 82. Just some random values of patient vitals I have updated here. Variety of formats, you can see we have strings, we have integers, we have float. So anything we can use as per requirement when declaring variables. This we have already discussed. So I have saved this information in memory now, and let us use different types of variables on this now. So first thing I'll try to check fever, if the person is suffering from fever or not. So maybe you have a consideration that which you will consider as a considerable fever for treating a patient. So maybe you are putting a criteria here that temperature, if it is greater than 100.4, then only we will consider it treatable further. Otherwise, we'll consider it normal and will not do anything on that. So what I'm doing is I'm writing here a sign to compare these values. Temperature value I have stored here. So 98.7 will be checked against 100.4. If 98.7 is greater, accordingly a true I'll get. If that is lesser, accordingly a false I'll get. So I'll run this and you can see false. So clearly it states that temperature is not in the range of that you consider as fever for that patient, or that may require treatment. So in this way, some kind of operators as well you can use. Currently, I'm using these operators directly just for the connection purpose, only just to see how it works. Later on, we'll be using these operators to derive specific expressions also. So currently, just the basic fundamental learning we are doing only. Similarly, maybe you are checking it for the heart rate from the entries. Observe here, these values I have done in one go. You can take it from user input also, and then you can apply these things that we have already learned. So now you can do any practice. Just for the learning purpose, I'm adding these different operators here. Like maybe for heart rate also, if you want to check if it is greater than 100 or not. So it says false. Observe here that these operators, greater than, less than operators, return values in the form of true and false. Like if I use this less than symbol, it says true, because the value here for heart rate is 88. So if it is less than 100, so it is representing true. So wherever you have these less than, greater than, or less than, equal to, less than, greater, greater than equal to that kind of symbols, the output will be in the form of true and false in Python. And accordingly, you can derive it further for certain decision making. Let me know if this is clear first, that how you can use these different types of variables. These declarations I have mentioned here. Now, next to this, I'll add some more interesting variables, like comparing between two different regions. Because when we are treating patients, there may be two different safe regions also to compare, the upper and lower regions, such as maybe for BP, you may have lower and upper margins that you would like to compare, or maybe for something else, because there are so many vitals from the patients that we have on upper and lower margins. So for instance, we are considering here a case for ICU priority maybe. Based on certain variables or vitals of the patients, we will consider whether this case should take ICU priority or not. Just a general consideration I'm using here. It is not like a very practical for the medical domain, but for the understanding purpose only. So what I'll do is I'll check here BP systolic is greater than maybe 160, and dia I'll put, for example, greater than 100. If it touches these ranges, you can see AND operator I'm using in between. This will combine both these areas, the upper and lower areas. AND operator in general, if I write AND operator, this operator in general tries to check when both side conditions are true. Then only it will be activated. If any of them is false, then it will stay false. So what it will do is, if I run this, it is saying false right now, because currently these two values, BP systolic, that is not greater than 160, and diastolic is not greater than 100. So accordingly, these values we are getting. If I change any of these, maybe I make it 80, for example, I'll run this. Still, it is false. Observe, because only one condition turned out to be true in that case also. This is 80 and 82 is greater than this. Although this one turned out to be true, but this one is still false because this value is still 120. So maybe if I put this marker below or upper, we change the value on the top, then we rerun it. So in that case, it may turn out to be true. So that shows ICU priority. I'm just changing the labels here. Otherwise, you can change the values here also. That is your choice. Just for the comparison purpose, I'm adding these different types of values here. So this was the initial entry that we have analyzed with AND operator over here. This is how these operators work in combination. Similarly, for instance, we want to check if the patient is in critical condition or not for leading certain kind of treatment in the emergency scenarios. So maybe we are checking SpO2 levels. I have not mentioned SpO2 levels here. So maybe I'll add here SpO2 one more value. And for this, maybe certain random value I'll insert, like maybe 80. And I'll have to rerun this. Observe this. If I'm changing any value in any previous cell, I have to rerun that. Then only that will be saved. Otherwise, it will not be saved. So if you edit anything and do not run, that will not be considered as executed. Always mention this whenever you are working on sheets. So maybe I'm entering a new value, I have rerun it, and then this new value is stored in my variable list. And now I can apply it here. Maybe to check critical condition of a patient, I have a criteria SpO2 less than 90 and heart rate greater than 120. So based on that, I'll ensure whether the person is critical or not. Just a general consideration I'm putting here. So I'll run this and it says false because the value doesn't match. Or if the values change, if certain other patient comes and their values are different, their values are fluctuated. So accordingly, that critical condition will be able to observe from this direct entry. Now, based on this, you can create conditions for anything. Like there can be several types of examples in your day-to-day medical domain, or in general also. Like maybe for hospital bed allocation, you can create some conditions like how many people are already admitted, how many are currently in line, how many more can be accommodated. That kind of condition you can create. Maybe how many beds you already have, how many are occupied, so that next day occupancy you can decide based on that. Similarly, eligibility for some surgeries if you have to create, so you check patient vitals, you will observe which one of them are fluctuated from the range, so that you can make a quick decision about whether this person is eligible for conducting surgery today or not. So this is how these simple conditions are going to help you judge everything quickly, without requiring manual calculation every time. Let me know if things are clear up to this. Okay, great. So now I'll show you a few more details about strings, because they may be useful when we are specifically talking about medical health data sets. In yesterday's sessions, or before that also, several times we have discussed that you may get information in textual summaries or some text-based data sometime. So in order to deal with that, although I'm not going very in depth with the text data processing today, because this is very first day on our this hands-on programming, but just some few examples I'll show you, just to understand how things happen in this Python programming. So for instance, we have a certain patient with the name, any name I'll insert here, a full name I have saved like this. Now from this, maybe you need only first name of the patient, not the last name, or vice versa. Any of these you need, maybe for your further analysis only one part of the string sequence you need, other you don't need. So how we can do that? There are some simple techniques. Just again, I'm mentioning here that for doing same thing, there are hundreds of different ways. Only just some quick options I'm showing you. Later on, you can explore further also as you practice more and more with Python programming. Just some quick guidelines I'm giving you, that these are the possibilities. So what I'll do here is full name split I'll apply here. And this function by default splits by white space. White space that is between these two. It will consider this as a split option. So it will split from white space. Wherever it finds white space, from there it will split your sequence. And currently I'm using it with two parts only, like Jane Smith, two things only I have created. Furthermore, I'll show you other options also. So what I'll do here is first name split I'm doing, and from name parts, I'm accessing the first name. You can see whenever we have any sequence, like it will be splitted into two parts. So in Python, we generally have two types of indexing. Now, indexing is an important concept here that will be used repeatedly somewhere else also. Let me just explain indexing very clearly to all of you, because time and again in different sessions we'll be talking about that. So, for instance, when I'm having a certain word sequence or maybe alphabetical sequence, every time it is stored in memory, it gets certain specialized memory location that is named as index entry by default in Python. So, when I'm storing this name as Jane Smith, I'm inserting as my name. So, in general, indexing for anything happens in two ways. Observe, in Python, we have positive indexing and we have negative indexing as well. First, let us understand it in simple manner, like how it may appear. For instance, if I insert ABC, three variables, positive indexing always starts from right side. From the left side. Positive indexing will always start from the left side, and it will be always from 0. So this will be stored at index 0. This will be stored at index 1. This will be stored at index 2. Considering this is a single element in your textual sequence. So when I'm storing maybe a message with value ABC in string sequences, it will be stored at 0, 1, and 2. Automatically, maybe this type of entry it will get. Individual alphabetical sequences in Python are stored. So now from this sequence, we can even have negative indexing. Negative indexing starts from this side. And because -0 doesn't make any sense, so it is always from -1, -2, and -3. How this is important, why it makes sense? From any longer data sequence, if I need to find a specific range of values only, this indexing is a way to access that. For example, from this message, if I access 0th value only, it will report A only. From this message, if I access, this will be always in square bracket. Observe, I'm using square bracket here because I have to input the memory location here. Earlier, I have every time used those parentheses or round brackets. Those are the function parts. When I have to access the memory location, currently I'm using this kind of. Furthermore, many other uses of different types of brackets we are going to learn. That will come with time, but currently for the basic only, the index location or the memory location we are trying to access. So if I put message 1, it will extract B. Similarly, if I add message -1, what value it should present? Anyone? What value it should bring in that case? Yes, C. And the same value it will input if I write 2 also. Still the same value it will bring, because positive and negative indexing, any of them we can use as per requirement. There is no restriction that which one you have to use in which case. So this is the first important thing to understand. Now, next thing what I'm doing here is I'm using this kind of sequence. Then I'm splitting it from space. This space we have in between, I'm splitting it up. So in the first case, when I declared it, it was stored with its original indexing. Like it was stored with 0, 1, 2, 3, something like this. It was stored. When I splitted it, it created two different parts because I used split operation. So that after splitting, we'll consider Jane as one part and Smith as other part. So now when they are individual parts after splitting, this will be stored at indexing 0, this will be stored at indexing 1 or at -1 and -2, because now I have splitted them as individual entities. So this time, if I have to access only the first name, I can access memory location either 0 or -2, or for the last name, I can access memory location -1 or 1. So that only we are trying to learn here, that positive and negative indexing, anything is possible. So if I'm using here 0, so from the split sequence, it will be getting Jane and Smith, two things. And of course, that also we can observe here first. We can do it in steps also. Let me remove this one. First, let us see how it is removing these parts. So you can see now it created two separate parts. And from here, now I can choose the first one as specific string entry. So the first name I could extract from this. So otherwise, every time you may have to do this manually, but once we deploy this kind of formula on your entire Excel sheet, etc., we'll be able to split all the first names in one go. This is how it may help. Currently, we are doing it just for one sequence, but later on for your entire sequence, this can be done quickly. The last name also you can extract similarly. Now, for instance, first I'll be sharing this in the window here so that you can access it easily later on. Now let me create a name with maybe middle name also. So I'll give it a name, full name complex, just some general identifications I'm using here. So I'm giving a name like maybe 3 different word sequences, like first name, middle name, and last name. 3 things we have in sequence. Now from here, if you have to access any specific type, like first name separately, middle name separately, and last name separately, can you try that? Is it possible to try? First split sequence will be same. You can just check how it appears, and then you can access it with the indexing values. If anyone can try, just take some time, try to extract all 3 things separately, first name, middle name, and last name, and show that in output and share your code in chat box. Let us see how it goes. I'll wait for a while to get your responses in the chat box. You have to use split function carefully. It has to be done like this. First, the variable name, that is storing your name, and then with dot operation, you can see a dot in between, and then split function I have applied. So here also, if I have to do this, I can use this, and I can save it in certain value. For instance, I'll write here maybe first name, I'll extract, I'll write split. And here, one thing you can observe, I have used it separately, like first you can use that separately also, and then you can pass your specific values. Maybe 0th value first I'm getting, then I'm getting the middle name. So that will be the 1th identity. And then I'm getting the last name. That will be the 2nd identity. And now I can print each one of them. So you can see first name I could extract like this, and the remaining ones also you can check one by one if they are extracted or not. Middle name you can see. You can use print command also separately for each one of them. So now I can extract each one of them. So one option is you can first separate them manually. This I have given you just to help you see how the splitting operation goes. And otherwise, you can directly apply the index conditions by the end of your formula, and all the 3 cases will be automatically splitted up. Let me know if this is clear. If anyone needs any help, they can also let me know. Yes, this looks also fine. You can try it this way as well. Like one person has shared it. For instance, if I run it like this, you can observe first name, middle name, last name, or you can make it more precise. You can add columns and space here so that it looks like you are marking them separately. That will be more clear representation for a better present outcome. So you can add those columns and some space within your inverted commas, and that will be used as it is. I hope this is clear to everyone. Now we come to one more entry. Sometimes you collect patient data from hospitals, and chances are that patient data from different departments is stored all together with specific IDs. And then you just have to split people from the department of your interest. So, for instance, I'll give you a general patient ID here. A majority of time in hospital zones, you may find some details like this, like patient ID, and then maybe the patient belongs to cardio department. So this kind of ID may be created. However, it completely depends on the format of different hospitals. They may follow different formats. I'm just giving you a quick idea that sometimes your formats may be like this. It is not always necessary that the space is the only separator. Sometimes some other options are there for separation, like dash, etc. Many other symbols can be also processed that you may learn in future as you progress with Python programming. I'm just giving you some ideas that as a beginner you need to know right now. So out of this, now, if you need to know either patient ID or maybe the department name specifically, you can split that using this dash sign also. Like for instance, I'll get here the patient number first. So that I can get from patient ID dot split. And this time the split sequence I'll apply over dash, and I'll run here 0. So that will bring me the patient number. Split it by dash this time, not by space. So I'm running this and we can see patient number, and in the similar pattern, we can see the department name also. Like I can split it with department name, and this time it will be 1. So here also I can segregate my patients based on this. If you are getting bulk data from input resources or the hospital environment, how you can get patients of your interest separated by using this kind of quick sequences. I'm sharing this within code window also. Now, these kinds of things you can apply on any different format as well. For instance, if I give you another example here, like patient ID, ENT, and then maybe certain number. Maybe here we have hospital or clinic, any detail you have, like a certain big brand has hospital and clinic chain both. So they are separating their patient IDs with hospital and clinic right in the beginning. So maybe you have something like this in that case. So from here, if I ask you to detect department, how you can do that, let me know. Just for the practice purpose, you just have to detect the department only, like this ENT department only you have to detect. What code you will be using? Yes, that will be fine. So I can just take this input and we can update it right here. And then I can see the department directly. So this shows ENT department. So this is a quick extraction you can learn. And now I'll be showing you one more interesting detail about handling text data, that is format a discharge summary in one line. Just a quick idea about, for instance, you have patient name with you, maybe in some database you have stored a patient name, and the diagnosis details are also available, maybe pneumonia, and then maybe days admitted. You have 4. Maybe this information you have already in your computer somewhere, and you don't want to write your discharge summaries manually, but you just want to generate them based on this information. So what we can have is, like, for every different patient, this will be a equivalent detail that you can pass. So summary I'll write here, and this I'll use with F string, and inside this I'll use discharge summary. Observe that when I apply this F in the beginning, it will allow me to add some dynamic text in between. Now I'm talking about a dynamic text. Understand that very carefully. This thing that is within inverted commas and appears in red, this is a static text. We are observing this right from the beginning. This kind of thing in your print statement is a static text. It gets printed as it is. That is why we call it a static text. This is a dynamic text. It will change based on the values we have in the input sequence. So this becomes a dynamic sequence. So we can sometimes have a combination of static and dynamic values. So from here, we can take dynamic values, that are the values contained in variables, and we can club it up with our standard format of discharge summary. So in your hospital, maybe there is a standard format of discharge summary, and you just have to put patient details in that wherever required. So what you can do is, here you can write patient name. First thing, was treated for, I'll be just creating a very small discharge summary. Otherwise, this generally goes with a very lengthy procedures, just to save time. Basic one only I'm creating. Then diagnosis we are inserting, and stayed for, here we'll be writing days admitted as days. So what it will do is, these curly brackets, these are taking your dynamic values. So it will replace this with the patient name. This one will be replaced with the type of diagnosis, and this value will be replaced with the variable value right here. And this sequence now, maybe this short discharge summary I have created, and now I can print this summary directly. So I'll just run this part, and you can see Rohit Sharma was treated for pneumonia and stayed for 4 days. A simple discharge summary. Just by taking all the variables stored in your database, we can create entire summary quickly. You can modify it further based on all the relevant set of variables. And once you have created these standard versions, every time you can take patient inputs directly, and the summaries will be formatted automatically without requiring any manual procedure in that case. Try this and let me know if this is clear. I'll wait for responses in the chat box. So since we are already on the verge of the session, I'll not take it any further. We can have time for any kind of queries or discussions on the topic if required. First of all, just let me know quickly if the session was useful for all of you or not. Were you able to learn something about programming? Okay, great. More importantly, tell me, how do you find Python programming now? With this first day experience, do you think this is worth learning and it is easier to learn? We just need to get out of the fear of programming, first of all. Do you think this is easier to learn as a programming language?